The fires of Mount Doom blazed with fury as Frodo Baggins stood at the precipice, the one ring dangling from his trembling fingers. After all the miles traveled, all the perils faced, the humble hobbit from the Shire found himself unable to complete his quest. "The ring is mine," he declared, slipping it upon his finger and vanishing from sight. But what if I told you that Frodo's moment of failure was not weakness, but the inevitable culmination of something written into the very nature of hobbits since their earliest days? I've discovered something in Tolkien's private letters and unpublished notes that changes everything about how we understand the connection between hobbits and the ring. A revelation that explains why no creature but a hobbit could have carried the ring so far, and why even the strongest hobbit was destined to falter at the end. By the end of this journey together, you'll understand the true origins of the Baggins family, the secret purpose of the Shire in Tolkien's grand design, and the astonishing connection between hobbits and the very magic that shaped Middle-earth itself. This is not the tale you thought you knew. Greetings, fellow travelers through the lore of Middle-earth. If you're seeing the thumbnail for this video, you noticed my question. Were hobbits originally created to resist dark magic? This ancient mystery is precisely what we'll unravel today. But first, let us establish our bearings in this vast landscape of legend. The hobbits, those remarkable little folk who dwell in comfort and simplicity, have always seemed mere bystanders in the grand conflicts of Middle-earth. Until they weren't. How did a people so removed from the struggles of elves, men, and dwarves become the central figures in the War of the Ring? The answer lies buried in forgotten histories that predate even the founding of the Shire. Before we venture deeper into these hidden histories, I must ask, if you're enjoying this expedition into the lesser-known corners of Middle-earth, consider joining our fellowship by subscribing to the channel. Like the lighting of the beacons of Gondor, your like helps summon other seekers of Tolkien's wisdom to our company. Now, let us continue our quest for knowledge. The tale of hobbits begins not in the verdant fields of the Shire, but in the shadowed eastern regions of Middle-earth during the early Third Age. Few know that there were originally 3 distinct branches of hobbit kind, each with attributes that would later prove crucial in the struggle against darkness. The Harfoots, ancestors of most Shire folk, including the Baggins family, were smaller, browner of skin, and possessed remarkable abilities to remain unseen when they wished. The Stores were broader, more adventurous, and drawn to riversides and flat lands. Most intriguing were the Followhides, taller, fairer, and gifted with language and leadership. But here's where it gets interesting. These distinctions were not mere physical differences. Tolkien's unpublished notes suggest that each hobbit strain possessed innate resistances to different forms of magical influence. The Harfoots could withstand illusions and deceptions. The Stores endured physical hardships that would break others, while the Followhides possessed strength against direct mental domination. Wait until you hear what these resiliences meant for Bilbo and Frodo's encounters with the ring, which I'll explain in just a moment. But first, we must understand how these scattered peoples came to establish the haven we know as the Shire. The year 1601 of the Third Age marked a pivotal moment in Hobbit history. 2 remarkable Followhide brothers, Marcho and Blanco, led a great migration westward. The king of Arthedain granted them lands beyond the Barrenduin River under 3 conditions. They would acknowledge his lordship, maintain the bridges and roads, and allow no other peoples to settle there without permission. Thus was born the Shire, a protected enclave deliberately established as a buffer zone between the realms of men and the wild lands beyond. But why would a king of men grant such autonomy, to a people he barely knew? The answer lies in ancient wisdom. The royal line of Arnor, descended from Numenor, possessed knowledge from the Second Age that recognized something special in Hobbit kind, a natural resistance to corruption that made them ideal guardians against subtle evils. Now, my friends, we come to the heart of our mystery. The Baggins family, seemingly ordinary even among hobbits, carried a unique heritage. Genealogical records reveal that the Baggins line represented a rare, perfect blending of all three hobbit strains: the steadfastness of Harfoots, the resilience of Stors, and the mental strength of Followhides. This is why the ring came to Bilbo. This is why Frodo could bear its burden longer than any other being in Middle-earth could have managed. The Baggins bloodline was unwittingly the perfect vessel to resist the ring's corruption, though not indefinitely. The evidence for this lies in how differently the ring affected hobbit bearers compared to others. Gollum, once a Stor, survived 500 years with the ring, yet retained enough of himself to feel remorse. Bilbo gave it up voluntarily, the only ring bearer in history to do so. And Frodo carried it to the very precipice of Mount Doom before succumbing. Though we remember hobbits for their love of comfort, their history reveals moments of astonishing courage that foreshadowed the heroism of the War of the Ring. In 47 of the Third Age, when a band of orcs invaded the Shire, Bandobra's Bullroarer took, standing 4 feet tall, rode to battle on a full-sized horse, and swung his club with such force that he knocked the orc leader's head clean off. Legend claims this head sailed 100 yards through the air and down a rabbit hole, thus inventing the game of golf simultaneously. And during the fell winter of 2911, when white wolves crossed the frozen Brandywine River to threat hobbit communities, ordinary farmers and brewers formed militia bands to protect their families with nothing but hunting bows and farming implements. These episodes reveal something crucial about hobbit nature. Their courage emerges not from desire for glory or power, but from protection of home and loved ones, the purest motivation that evil cannot corrupt. Now we approach the most profound revelation in our journey, one that changes how we understand the entire geography of Middle-earth. The Shire was not merely a quaint countryside where hobbits could live in peace. It was, by design, a sanctuary against dark magic. The very practices that seemed most peculiar about hobbit culture, their birthday customs of giving rather than receiving gifts, their integration of homes into the natural landscape, their cultivation of the earth, were ancient rituals that continuously renewed and strengthened the land's protective qualities. Consider this passage from Tolkien's letters. The hobbits represent something very precious to me. A kind of natural magic, or more precisely, a natural resistance to magic. The Shire's apparent mundanity was its greatest power, a place where the ordinary became extraordinary in its ability to repel corruption. This explains why Saruman's industrialization of the Shire during the Scouring was so devastating. He wasn't merely destroying its beauty, he was systematically dismantling its magical protections, performing a dark counter-ritual to the Hobbit's centuries of unwitting earth magic. Let us pause to consider something remarkable that few have noticed. The One Ring affected each bearer differently, manifesting their deepest desires in corrupted form. For Isildur, it promised unending rule and glory. For Gollum, it offered escape from loneliness and possession of beauty. For Boromir, it dangled the salvation of his people. But for Bilbo and Frodo, the ring could only offer escape and invisibility, reflecting hobbits' desire to be left alone rather than to dominate others. The ring struggled to corrupt them, because their desires were so fundamentally incompatible with its purpose. This is why Gandalf told Frodo, "There are other forces at work in this world besides the will of evil." He wasn't speaking of abstract cosmic balance, but of the specific protective qualities embodied in Hobbit nature. As our journey nears its end, we must look to what followed the War of the Ring. After the scouring of the Shire, Sam used Galadriel's gift, a small box of earth from her garden, to restore the Shire's damaged lands. What seemed a simple act of gardening was actually something far more significant. The Malorn tree that grew in the party field, the only one west of the mountains and north of Lorien, was not merely decorative. It was a living anchor for new protective enchantments, stronger than those that had guarded the Shire before. When King Elessar declared the Shire a free land and forbade men from entering it without permission, he wasn't just honoring his Hobbit friends. He was establishing a magical sanctuary that would endure through the Fourth Age. The proof. In all of Tolkien's writings about the future of Middle-earth, the Shire alone remains unchanged, while kingdoms rise and fall around it. It became the last refuge of the magic of the Elder Days in a world growing increasingly dominated by men. My friends, we have traveled far together through the hidden histories of Hobbit kind. We've discovered that these seemingly simple folk were in fact bearers of an ancient resistance to darkness, that the Baggins lineage represented a unique convergence of protective qualities, and that the Shire itself was a sanctuary of natural magic in a darkening world. This changes how we understand Frodo's failure at Mount Doom. It was not weakness, but the inevitable exhaustion of even the strongest natural resistance. No, being in Middle-earth could have carried the ring further. The miracle is not that Frodo failed at the end, but that a Hobbit, and only a Hobbit, could bring the ring to destruction's edge where Providence could complete what mortal strength could not. Before we part ways, I leave you with a question to ponder. If Hobbits possessed this natural resistance to dark magic, what about the dwarves, whose creation by Alle gave them unique resilience against domination? Could this explain why the 7 dwarf rings failed to turn their bearers into wraiths? And what might this reveal about Gimli's role in the Fellowship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until our next journey through the forgotten tales of Middle-earth, remember the wisdom of Gandalf. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.